Hey there. So I'm on, I know we're a couple minutes late, but I'm going to wait until the garage door closed because my office is right above the garage, so you can hear everything that goes on in the garage really loudly. So I'm Corey Walmsley, and I help emerging leaders and high high-powered people who are super productive, who want to write books for their business or to up-level their career. And I coach, I do book editing. I help you guys get your books out there for the world to see because you have important ideas that you want to reach new clients. You want to help people get into your programs. You want to reach the media and get on podcasts and TV shows and go into magazines. So this is what I do. This is how I help people. And I've noticed this really funny pattern over the past few years that I've been in business where people approach me and they say, hey, I want to write a book. I'm really interested. And then I never hear from them. So sometimes I reach out to them or I see them at a networking event and I say, oh, hey, are you still thinking about that book? I've got this going on, I've got this going on. And they're like, oh, I'm doing this right now, but I really want to write that book. And that got me thinking, well, why is it that this keeps happening? Because if you really, really want to write that book, and you really want to up-level your career, you really need that book to announce your street cred, then why is it that people aren't doing this? And I realized what was going on. So I'm going to tell you kind of a funny story here. So let's say that you want to go on vacation. We've had this happen to us before where we go on vacation and we decide ahead of time, hey, I want to go on vacation in the spring. So we start planning. My husband and I are actually pretty good at planning. So we'll sit down and say, hey, where do we want to go? What do we want to see while we're there? Where do we want to stay? How do we want to get to that destination? And we actually will plan out the entire vacation. Now, the best time we ever did this was actually on our trip to London in the UK back in 2010. We sat down and we planned out that entire vacation. We knew we were going to spend about 5 days there. We knew that we wanted to see certain things. My husband and I love museums. We love history, especially ancient history for me. I've always found that fascinating. So both of us, we have some, actually a good bit of British and, the islands, as I like to call them, in our genetics. So we knew, we're kind of tied to the UK in that way. So we were really interested. Plus, we had never been on vacation together before. So we thought this would be kind of, for a non-domestic vacation, this would be a good idea because you don't have to learn a new language. We're both pretty good with English. So we decided to sit down and plan out this vacation. Well, obviously, how are we going to get there? Airplane. That was an easy one, but we knew we had to book the flight. We had to decide when we wanted to go. What time of year is going to be a good time for this? Well, my husband works in sports, so we decided after baseball season was over, or if we can nip it a little shorter, go right at the end of baseball season so he gets a little extra time because baseball season is a crazy time in his schedule. So we did it at the end of September. We planned this ahead of time. We knew exactly when we wanted to do it. We knew where we wanted to go. We sat down and said, okay, what hotel is going to be in the center of all these things that we want to see? This is a good hotel. Let's check it out. And we researched the hotel. We actually planned out day by day what part of town we wanted to be in because we didn't want to go see something over here and then have to go across town and see something over here in the afternoon. So we actually had pockets of things that we were seeing. Each day was a different day. We planned ahead of time. We actually missed out on seeing a Shakespeare play at the Globe, which was really sad. I was disappointed about that, but that's because we didn't realize how far in advance you had to plan to do that, which is probably 6 months to a year. So we missed out on that, but we got to do a ton of other things that we wanted to do because we planned. And this is the biggest thing that's keeping people from writing their books because they're saying they want to do it and then they're not planning ahead and saying, okay, when do I want to do this? How am I going to make this possible? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. You have to do the same when you're writing your book or when you plan on writing your book. You have to actually plan ahead to make it a successful venture. And this is what I want to show you how to do. So start by looking at your year. And a lot of times, I'm kind of leaning against the wall here because I couldn't get my camera adjusted funny, so you might see me dancing. So if you have a speaking engagement, if you have a retreat planned, maybe you have a big workshop, a conference, something big, something where a lot of people are going to be there, you probably know that far in advance. So right now I'm doing this video, it's the end of June. Maybe you have something planned for October or November. So this is when you want to say, that would be an excellent time to launch my book. That would be the time to have it done. How many months are there between now and October? So you've got July, August, September, October. We're just going to say for the sake of things that you have 4 months to work with. So how are you going to work on this book and get it done successfully? Well, you have to break down the months, you have to plot out the whole timeline and know when your goal date is. Now, maybe you don't have a goal date, maybe you don't have anything big planned, then that's okay. Just decide on something reasonable, so decide on something arbitrary. You know, there's 6 months left in the end of the year. Maybe you want to be launched by January. Maybe you want to launch it toward the beginning of December because it's something that would be a good Christmas present or you know, a holiday gift of some sort. Maybe you want to wait until January for the launch, so you need that a little extra time to plan for a launch in January. Whatever it is, decide on when you want that to launch and start planning backwards from there. So we're going to do kind of a sample on the board here. So let's say that you want to launch in, let's say you want to launch at the end of October. We're going to do a really tight timeline on this. So here's the end of October. Let's see where I can, yeah, okay, you can see that. October launch. And we'll say end of October. Okay, so we've got a launch at the end of October. So if we start back here, July starts in just a couple weeks. So let's say July. And maybe I'll get this all spaced out right now, it'll look pretty. August, September, October, there you go. So here you see the next 4 months ready to go. So let's say it takes you 3 months, like if you do one of my group programs, it would take you about 3 months to do a book. So let's say that the writing portion goes from here through the end of September. Okay, and again, this is a pretty tight timeline. So there's your writing. Okay, so now you know July, August, and September are going to be really heavy writing times for you. So you don't want to plan a bunch of other things going on. You don't want to go, maybe I'll go on vacation in September. Well, no, that's when you're wrapping up your book. You don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to try to do a ton of speaking gigs in August, because you know, if you're dedicating a lot of time to this, maybe you won't have the time for all those speaking gigs. So if you're trying to plan ahead, then you want to block off the time ahead of time. And again, this is a really tight timeline. This is if you decide today, oh, this is the time to do it. Maybe you want to look at this for, you know, months down the road or whatever. But for our purposes, we're just looking at if we want to get a book out by the end of the year. So end of October launch, so you've got a full month in July, August, and September to write. So some of the other stuff that you're doing too, you want to work with somebody on the cover design. You want to work with an editor and get your book completely cleaned up and make it look good, because you want to look professional. So you need those things that are, you know, make it physically appealing and or aesthetically appealing, and you want it to be polished. So when you're handing this to somebody, they're not like, well, I don't understand what chapter 2 means. What are you even talking about? So you have to make sure that your editor knows far enough in advance that you have an end of October launch. So maybe you want to make sure here you call your editor or look for an editor and make sure that they are available for October, because in October you want your editing to be early. You want it early on in the month. Okay, And if your editor is booked in October, then that could be kind of tough. So you want to make sure you're getting in touch with an editor ahead of time. You want to make sure that you have somebody to do any photos that you need. So if you want to have a cover designed, maybe you want to start with getting some pictures here. I'm just going to say cover shoot. There, now you sound fancy. So maybe you want to do your cover shoot in August. And then maybe you want to make sure that the cover design is happening here in September. Okay? Make sure you have gotten in touch with an editor. You have a photographer for your cover shoot. You have a cover design. Someone has to sit down and actually develop the cover for your book. So if all these pieces aren't falling into line, then you won't be ready for this October launch. So that's why you have to plan it out. And basically any business that is handling projects all the time, let's see if I can scoot down on the wall here again. Any business that's handling projects like this, they sit down before they do the project and say, all right, what's the timeline for this? How long is it going to take? We need it to launch here. So we need this to happen here. We need this to happen here. We need this to happen here. When I worked at my corporate job, I used to work as a technical and scientific writer for the Department of Justice, and then I worked at the Department of Energy at a national laboratory. And we would, when I worked at the national lab, we would sit down before we would handle a big project like our yearly report and say, okay, the writing of articles has to take place here. We need to make sure that we allow this amount of time for editing because we want it to be polished and perfect. We want everybody who is a writer to switch off and not be reading the same stuff that they wrote, because that can make it really tough. So we had to switch around and make sure that we had lots of eyes on this project. And then after that, we had to make sure it went to layout and that our graphic design team had plenty of time to make it look pretty. Because if you take up so much time with the writing and editing, and then you hand it to somebody and say, here, put this together, you've got 2 days, it's not going to look that great. So, you have to consider your full timeline. And that actually reminds me of something else. So you'll need formatting done too. So once you have your editing done, you want your formatting afterwards. And that's just, font selection, making your chapter headers look pretty, making sure that the pages actually are on the correct pages, because you don't want chapter 2 to start on the same page as the back end of chapter 1. You have to have somebody to do that. And these are just steps in the process, right? But if you're not getting this part done here, this writing part, then the rest of this, it's not going to happen either. So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew how to lay this out and what all needs to happen to make your book actually happen. And it's not that hard, really. You just have to do a little planning, know what's in store, and be able to say, hey, I'm actually going to sit down and get this done. So on the other end of that, this is the simple process. This is how you do it. But I want to talk about some things that may also be keeping you from getting through this, because you can lay this out, you can plan everything, and then you can sit down at your computer and just be like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. Or I don't know what to write. So, there could be some things holding you back on that too. And, one answer is to make sure that you're getting help, make sure that you have a coach, make sure that you have an editor, make sure that you have all the people in the team that you need to get this book done. I love coaching people through this process, and I make it super easy, I make it super fun, and, there are lots of different options there. But the other end of it too, like, I can sit down with you and work and work and work and say, this looks good, this is, more of this, please explain this more, I think this would be really helpful. But if you sit down and you're stuck, maybe there's an actual reason for that. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about whenever we do our calls for my coaching, with my coaching clients. We sit down and talk about, like, well, what is it you're stuck on in this chapter? Because it's not just writer's block. I know we like to throw that term around and make it sound all mysterious. Yeah, so it's not just writer's block. There are actually things that are keeping you from doing the writing when you get down to it. Maybe there's an actual reason why you're stuck. Maybe it's not just, I didn't understand the process. Maybe you sit down and, there's something about this that's terrifying or overwhelming or confusing, or maybe it's something about your personal story that you're talking about that really makes you nervous. So those are some of the things that I like to help people with. And if this sounds interesting to you, if you've been thinking about writing a book, especially those people that I've been talking to for 3 years who say, hey, I want to write a book, maybe next time. And, this year I've actually had people tell me they were interested in my February course. And then when I approached them and said, hey, this is coming up, they would say, oh, no, put me down for next time. And I'd approach them about the May course and they'd go, oh, yeah, put me down for next time. That's part of it too. You have to plan it out. It's only a 3-month course, so you have to block that time out in your schedule. The next one is coming up in August, and I want to make sure that everyone who is interested is ready to go on that. So August, September, October. If you're interested in Brilliant Business Book Intensive, then make sure you block off some time for that. And I have some fantastic tips and tricks that I teach you in that course to help keep you excited about your writing, repurpose some of the stuff that you already have, because you already have a book. You probably have it on your hard drive and you don't even know it. So let me help you get through that. Let me help you figure out that whole process. I would love to talk with you. If you're interested in scheduling a call with me, drop a comment and let me know, hey, I want to call. Plus, if you're already in the writing process and maybe you need somebody to be accountable to, because sometimes we need to say, yes, I turned in my homework, here it is, I did my stuff, I'm getting through it and I'm making progress. I have an accountability group that is running once a month. It is a super fantastic price, and the next one is, I believe, July 2nd. Usually it is the second Tuesday of the month, but because the whole nation likes to celebrate my birthday, July 4th, we had to switch some things around at the beginning of July. So the next call is July 2nd, but usually it's the second Tuesday of the month. So if you're interested in either a private call with me to talk about coaching or what's holding you back with your book, or if you're interested in the accountability group, drop a comment below, let me know which one you would like, and I will be in touch. Thank you so much for watching. This actually turned out to be a lot longer than I had planned, but I hope this helped you guys out, and make sure that you are planning your book. Plan out the process, because this is so, so important.